So when I was 22 years old, I was fortunate enough to go and volunteer for a year as a wildlife researcher in the Lope National Park in Gabon. And on my very first night there, I was trying to fall asleep, and this is what I heard. And that's a mother elephant who was walking right by my window, about an arm's length away. And that window wasn't like a glass pane window like most of you are used to. It was pretty much a paper-thin mosquito netting. And I was glued to that mosquito netting in awe of these animals that were walking literally inches away from me. I've always been passionate about animals. They've always amazed me. Their natural habitats have always amazed me, whether it's the forest of the Congo or large prairies here in America. This has always been my passion ever since I've been a little kid. When I was growing up, I thought I'd be a wildlife veterinarian. That's not what I became. Then I thought I'd be an ethologist, somebody who would study the behaviors of animals. That's not what I became either. But I always maintained this passion for animal. That's what guided all the choices I made, personal and professional. It influenced my career. I applied this passion to try to do something good for animals. And so that's what I encourage everybody to do, is to find your passion and to try to apply it to do something good with it. As you know, our planet is not doing so well, and animals aren't doing so well either. In my lifetime, and I'm not that old, as was mentioned before, I have kids here in the lower school, not in the middle school. So in my lifetime, we've lost more than half of the world's wildlife populations. We estimate that recently about 30 elephants per year were killed for their tusks, for their ivory. In order to get the ivory from an elephant, you have to kill it. At AT&T Park, where the Giants play baseball, there are 40,000 seats. That's about twice as many as there are lions left in the world. There's a unique species of wolves found on the high plateaus of Ethiopia. Well, there's only about 450 of those Ethiopian wolves left in the world. Can you imagine a world without those animals? I can't, and I don't want to. And actually, I don't imagine that world, because I know that when people find and act upon their passion and apply it to do good, we can make a tremendous difference in the world for animals or for other good things. That passion, it doesn't have to be about wildlife. It can be about anything, and you can apply it to wildlife. You can also apply it to anything else that you care about just to make the world a better place, but let's just stick a little bit with wildlife. So remember that you don't have to be a biologist to help save animals. There are many different ways to help save animals. In fact, most of the conservationists that I work with and that I've worked with over my career have come to realize that most of their work does not involve working with animals. It involves working with people. So in northern Kenya, the Grevy's Zebra Trust works to protect the endangered Grevy's zebra. It's a different species of zebra than the common zebra that you most often see in documentaries. There's only about 2,800 of those animals left in the world, only found in northern Kenya and maybe in parts of southern Ethiopia. Well, it turns out that those animals, in order to survive, they need good quality grass and access to water, which is the same thing that cattle really need. And cattle is really important to the livelihood of local communities. So our partners working to protect the Grevy zebras are working with local communities to try to restore grassland so that we could have healthy grass and access to water that can enable both wildlife and people and their cattle to coexist and thrive. This woman who's working here, she didn't start by being passionate about zebras. She was passionate about her own livelihood, about her community. But by engaging her, she discovered and developed an appreciation for the interconnectedness between these two worlds. And by engaging her, she became fully passionate about making sure that the Grevy zebras had access to quality grass and water, which is the same thing that her communities also need. Also in northern Kenya, we've got a partner called the Waso Lions, who works with another disenfranchised groups, young men, teenagers, and young adults, who in this part of the world form a community called Moran, or warriors. They're a group of young age men who are often in charge of taking care of a cattle, and they live on the outside of our communities for a number of years. They're the ones who are the most likely to get in contact with wildlife. And they weren't engaged in any of the wildlife conservation decisions. And so our partners reached out to them, got them engaged. And now they're the eyes and ears of these conservationists because they know where the wildlife is. They know where the cattle are roaming. And so they can prevent and mitigate conflict between people, their cattle, and wildlife. And these people in return wanted to learn how to read and write English because they didn't have the opportunity to go to school. Cattle is their most prized possession. And one of these young men, somebody named Jean-Gaël, who I'll show a picture of a little bit later, really, truly inspiring leader. Well, Jean-Gaël eventually said that he didn't want to have any cattle. He gave all his cattle away because now that he was protecting lions, lions were his cattle. His passion had truly been ignited, and he's making a world of difference for his communities and for wildlife in that area. We find that passionate people are often also very creative thinkers. And so I have another friend and colleague who is passionate about elephants. And it turns out that having elephants as your neighbor is a pretty difficult thing. They tend to trample through people's crops, and it destroys everything. It's like somebody basically not just storming through your refrigerator, but basically looting all of your grocery stores for several months. There's no food, and you've worked really hard at it, and there's no food anymore. So it's really difficult to have elephants as your neighbors. Well, to make a long story short, it turns out that elephants do not like being stung by bees. And they actually can hear a swarm of bees, and as soon as they hear it, they move very quickly in the opposite direction. And so my colleague here decided to help local communities set up beehive fences by stringing around all these plantations, strings interspersed with beehives, some real, some fake. Basically, elephants, when they would try to come in, they would disturb the beehives. The bees would come out, the elephants would hear it, and they would get stung once, and the next time they would just run away in the opposite direction. And so this is a pretty effective elephant deterrent. And now it's being piloted not just in southern Kenya, but in other countries in Africa, as well as in Asia. So you really have to tap into this passion that people have, unleash that creativity. And a great way to do that is to do that with children. We're all passionate people, and kids especially are very passionate. Their hearts and minds are open. Our partner in Colombia here works to protect a small monkey. It's about this big. It's got a big tuft of white hair. It's called the cotton-top tamarin. It's only found in Colombia. It's critically endangered there. There's probably about a few thousand of them left in the world. There are probably more of them actually left in zoos than there are in the wild. And so they started talking to children about them because a lot of those kids who live right on the outskirts of these forests had never seen these monkeys. And so they started taking those kids out in the forest so that they could be exposed to those animals, because if you don't know something, you're not going to get passionate about it. And one of those kids became so passionate about it that he became more and more involved in the program, and he's now the guy in the blue shirt, acting as an instructor, running these programs for that organization. And since then, this was taken a few years ago, he's gone on to university to study environmental studies. His passion was ignited. I'm sure he's going to do some great things, whether it's for the cotton-top tamarins or something else, but I know he's going to make the planet a better place. We all need to nurture this passion, and it's a two-way street, and everybody has a different role to play. This is my daughter, Chloe, who goes to school here. She's also passionate about animals. The apple doesn't fall very far from a tree, probably. She's never had a chance to go and visit Africa, but she knows about it. She's had the opportunity to meet Jean-Gaël. This is the warrior who said that lions were now his cattle, because I run an organization where we bring some of these people here. So Chloe has had a chance to meet Jean-Gaël. They've had a chance to talk to each other. She really wanted to help. She does what she can. She's organized bake sales and has sent money to help his organization do his work. Plenty of people do this. There are other kids here at EB who have done the same. There are kids all over the country. I get letters sometimes from people saying, hey, here's $2.26 that I was able to raise, or I'm going to do a Halloween drive of some sort. Everybody has a different role to play. And it also inspires all these conservationists all over the world. For somebody like Jean-Gaël to know that there are people hundreds of thousands of miles away who have never seen the places where he works. for him to know that there are people like that who care about it, it inspires him. It keeps his passion going. And that passion can really go in multiple directions. As I said, everybody has a role to play. Even Jane Goodall, who has inspired me and millions of other people with all her messages of hope. She started studying chimpanzees in Gambia. And by the way, she was a young woman who was probably told that she couldn't do this, and she did. So to all the young girls here, you could do anything you want. While Jane Goodall has inspired me, many of other people, she also needs to get re-inspired to rekindle this passion. And she gets it from meeting all the children that her organization interacts with, and people like Janaria, who has found his passion, who has applied it to do good, and who's making a big difference in the world. So this is what I encourage you to do, to find your passion, to apply it to do good. Because imagine, if everybody acted upon their passion, whether it's through their job or as a hobby, as something that you do a little bit on the side, whatever it is, if you just acted upon your passion to apply it to do good, I have no doubt that the world would be a better place. Thank you.